All right, welcome to our weekly press conference for Bluejay football. I'm head coach Chad Frigon. We're coming off a loss to Park Hill. We lost 20-10 last week against a really good Park Hill team, and did some things well, and definitely have some things we need to improve on. So I'll go ahead and open it up for some questions.
Okay, good afternoon, Mr. Frigon.
Good morning.
So how has the team been working forward from the last Friday's loss?
Well, last week was a tough loss in that we were in the game for the second week in a row right up to the very end. And with the score being close, we really made one big mistake in that fourth quarter, and then we threw an interception, a return for a touchdown, and pick six that ultimately widened the game out to that 20-10 margin we were unable to come back from. We talked about that a lot as a team. That play specifically, we were in a 1st and 40 situation because we had a holding penalty and a personal foul that put us into the situation where we had to pass deep in our own territory. And other than that, played a pretty good game. Defensively, played an outstanding game. Definitely played well enough on defense to win the football game. And offensively, took some things from it. Our first drive went all the way down to the 10, had a holding penalty that got us backed up. We ended up settling for a field goal. Freshman Drew Mackey drilled a really nice field goal, got us ahead 3-0, but we were really hoping to be ahead 7-0 on that big of a drive to open the game. So those are some things that when you're playing a good team like Park Hill, is ranked in the top 5 in the state, you have to take advantage of your scoring opportunities. And secondly, you can't give them points like we did on the interception return. So those are the things we took from last week that we're hoping to build into this week, going against a really good Truman team.
Could you talk about Xavier's injury and the play that caused that?
Yeah, okay. First off, the play that caused it was a kickoff return that they pooch kicked that was bouncing as a live ball. He had come up on it and dove for the football. At the same time, one of their players had hit his shoulder pads full speed into his head. He was treated on the field and then taken down to the hospital to get checked out. He is right now going through the recovery phase that we do with all of our concussion. He was diagnosed with concussion, then being able to go through a recovery phase back to where he's into full contact again. Right.
What do you think your biggest challenge is going to be this week? Really,
with Truman, they're 3-1 this year. Have had wins against St. Joe Central and some other good teams. They lost to Lee Summit week 1, but since then have really been on a roll. And that was a big win against St. Joe Central. They beat Ruskin, and then on Metro Sports they beat Raytown South. And so have played some really tough teams. They run the ball extremely well. And they're a senior-dominated team. I looked on their defense. I know 9 out of their 11 starters are seniors. We're a team that starts or have started up to 10 sophomores this year. So they're experienced with that. And we know that they run the ball well. Last year they outrushed us in our game and ran the ball extremely well against us. They have an all-conference running back in number 2, Salima, that's back. Very good player. And then their quarterback, Dean Clemens, is a quarterback. He only played a half against us last year and got hurt, but he's a very good player, runs their offense extremely well.
How do you think the team has progressed throughout the season?
Well, I feel like right now we have progressed maybe more on defense than we have on offense. Our defense is really doing a good job of stopping the run. Like I said last week, holding a Park Hill team that really good Park Hill team to 13 points offensively was a big feat for them. And offensively, honestly, we've struggled with our injuries, and we've had one quarterback that we lost for the season, another one that's been out for a while, and that's hurt our progression on offense. I'm hoping we're past that point now and can continue to move forward.
Obviously, this week we have a home game, and
Right.
then next week for our homecoming game. Can you talk a little bit about what that means for your guys and that momentum the next 2 weeks?
We're really excited. When we found out that Jewel was unavailable for our 2 home games these 2 weeks, we made the decision to have it here on campus at Liberty High School. And just the overall, our experience in the past, not football-wise, but just as a game as a whole on Thursday night, we don't get the elementary school kids as many to come out to our games. The community is not there as much, simply because it's not a Friday night and it's a school night and some things with that. So, and then also compound that with school the next day. with our team, made them challenging. So we were excited to be able to have these on a Friday night, not have a Thursday game this year. Our kids are excited to play here at the high school. We did it once last year, and it was a huge success. And not only just a good game for us, and then we had a win, but the whole atmosphere, the crowd, everything was really good. So we're excited about these next 2 nights to be able to play out here in front of our high school and be able to do what really every other high school is able to do and play on their own home field. So the kids are excited, the coaches are excited, and I can tell the student body is as well.
What are some major things do you think your team has done very well this season so far?
Well, I think our biggest thing, when you compare maybe to last season, our run defense has been much better, both statistically and being able to, just look at what they've done in terms of field position they're set up for us defensively. I've been really pleased with that. They're working well as a unit and really coming in their own as a defense. As far as offensively, we've ran the ball better than we did last season. We threw it a little bit more with our personnel that we had last year, but at the same time, struggled running the ball, especially in times where we had to run the ball. And we've this year been able to do that by out-rushing our opponents in all of our games. And some of that is we gained some of the experience off our offensive line that we gained last year. We're a little bigger this year. And then Robert Rowley's had an outstanding season. He's one of the top rushers in the city as a sophomore. He has 600 yards, about 150 yards a game through our 4-game stretch here.
What are some of your plans for the rest of the season?
Well, as far as we're just going to take it a week at a time right now is to get a conference win against Truman on Friday night. Like I said, they're coming in here 3-1. And having a lot of success with the teams that they've played. They've just dominated them. And you look at since that week 1, they've really moved the ball at will. They come off the ball extremely hard, and we know we're going to have to play our best game Friday night to get a win.
So obviously you have a lot of improvements you need to work on. Outside from the game, when you're in practice, what are some things you specifically work on to make your team better?
Well, our practices go along the same. We break our practices into 4 different times, where we have a special teams time, we have an offensive time, a defensive time, and then we have what we call individual, where people work with their own individual positions. And through that, every night we film everything in practice. Coaches go home, watch practice, make notes, things are going to improve on the next day. And we did that last night. All of our coaches watch their segments, their parts, their positions, improve things for the next day. Come in, we watch it on film before we practice again. We've already had film this morning, early on a Wednesday morning. Be able to take whatever we learned from practice and film and apply that to what we've had for practice tonight, and hopefully improve each day. If we do that, which I feel we are, I feel like we're a much better team than we were 4 weeks ago, even with the injuries we sustained, that we can keep getting better.
What improvements are you expecting to see by the end of the season?
Well, our whole deal with our goals is that we want to outrush our opponents, and the biggest improvement we can make as a team is start winning the turnover margin. We're negative in it this year, meaning that we've given the ball to the other team more than we've taken it away, and we have to improve that. We did, made it a point of emphasis last week, and that's why we lost at Park Hill. We had 4 turnovers and had a fumble, 3 interceptions, and that same time we got 1 back. So we know that it really took us out of some scoring opportunities that we could have used right there. It also gave them some scoring opportunities as well.
Can you tell us a little bit about Robert Rari and how he impacts your game?
Robert's just one of those kids. He's a natural leader on the field, and he's very humble, very quiet, but he goes so hard that it kind of rubs off on everybody else. And he wants the ball when the going gets tough. We had a touchdown drive in the second half last week, and he wanted the football and was in there, and we did not score on a couple runs, and we called a pass to him, and he caught a pass in the end zone with that. But he's a very humble leader that puts every one of his teammates before himself. And he's the kind of kid that when we're leaving after a tough loss at Park Hill, he was in picking up the locker room for a piece of the tape or cups or anything like that. He's just an outstanding individual. We have a lot of those on our team, but he's one that stands out and makes the people around him better. All right, thanks for coming, and we'll talk to you again next week. Thank you.